Hello?
What's going on, Mark?
Hey, what's up, man? Are we live and shit?
We are live and shit.
Oh my god. This is kind of fun for me today because I got my family is here. I got a bunch of people from out of town because it's my dad's 70th birthday coming up.
So that's all the people with all these accents.
Yep, I know they talk weird. Everyone's short and stubby. Everybody kind of looks like a power lifter, whether they want to look like a power lifter or not. Especially my cousin Steven. I don't know. He claims he never works out, but it looks like all he does all day is squats and shrugs.
He's thick. He's bottom heavy. I've been looking at him for a while.
You've been sizing up those
Yeah,
calves.
yeah, all calves. All of you are all calves.
I don't know. I don't know what happened. I
Yeah,
don't know what happened to some of us. But yeah, it's awesome to have everybody here, and this will be cool to share this podcast with them, and we'll have some great times. Come here to the gym, kill ourselves a little bit for those
Yeah.
that want to get involved, and see what we do here at Super Training. Be kind of cool.
absolutely.
Today we're going to talk about some goals, and we had a question just on the last podcast about how to even set goals, and I don't know, certain things that I never even thought about just because I think I've been busy doing shit, so I never kind of sat around to really think about how these things came to be, or I never sat down and tried to necessarily plan anything out. Shit just unfolded. I lifted for a really long time, and lifting was the only thing I was ever good at. It was the only thing that ever fulfilled me. It was the only thing that really ever made me feel special. It ever really separated me out from other things. I played baseball. I played football. I did track. I was pretty good at a lot of different things, but lifting was, like some kid at 4 years old, 5 years old, plays the piano, and it's clear that he's better than everybody else when it came to lifting. I started out a little bit ahead of everybody, and it just always felt right. And anytime I veered away from it, it felt wrong. Even sometimes just for days at a time, just to even take a break from it, never felt right. So I always just kind of kept doing it. And it took me a really long time to identify what I was actually really doing. But when I look back on it now, I can clearly see that I was, I'll use the word sacrifice, and hopefully that's not too extreme of a word for people to understand, because I realize that me lifting weights is not an actual sacrifice. I understand that people make much larger sacrifices in their life, but I'll just use the word sacrifice out of convenience. I was sacrificing for the unknown. I was suffering for the unknown. I was building myself up for what was to come. And what was to come was where we're at now, inside this 23,000 square foot facility where we have a free gym and we pump out quote unquote free content that probably costs me upwards of $250,000 a year. Just a random rough number, but it's probably on the low end if I'm really being serious about it, because of how many people we employ and how much time and effort actually goes into giving out this information. This podcast is not monetized. The podcast used to be monetized. We were headed into making about $200,000 a year through advertising, and I got rid of all that, threw all that away because it didn't feel right. And I wanted to get back to the roots of this thing, that was sharing information, having it be fun, and communicating with people without there being advertising everywhere, even though you can see some of my products are right here. And my theory on all that is it just all comes back around, whether it's direct, indirect, however you want to look at it. Maybe I'm not correct. I don't know. And if somebody came in and looked at the numbers, they would be like, what are we doing here? But a lot of these things just kind of a natural progression. The resistance that I've faced in the gym, I didn't really realize was going to be a huge part of my success later on. I didn't really realize that when I did a set of 10, I didn't really realize that was going to transfer over into having repetition after repetition after repetition of people telling me I was dumb, people telling me I wasn't good enough, people telling me that I wasn't smart enough or wasn't good enough to do this job or wasn't good enough to do that job, or I fit into a very specific role that they maybe had set out for me to do or set out for me to be. Um, I didn't realize that all the lifting all these years was setting me up to be my own person and to not subscribe to what other people had in their head of what they thought I should do. And so when we're talking about goals, a lot of this gets really confusing because I never really had. I had dreams, but I didn't really have goals. I always wanted to be wealthy from the time I was a kid. I don't know why I was attracted to it, but I remember being like 7, 8 years old, and I told my dad I want to live in a castle. And I don't have a castle yet, but I'm still working on it. Um, I don't know why. I just always thought that would be cool, and I guess that was a dream that later kind of turned into a goal. Um,
When you were younger, did you have like what's, I can't think of the word, but like right now my daughter, like if I tell her like, oh, you have like $100, she doesn't understand that it's $100 or $1 million.
yeah.
Like, did you did you have that like in your head that you knew like the value of money when you were a kid?
So here's where shit gets to be really cool, especially having my family right here is, and especially my cousin wearing the shirt that he's wearing right now, is that I grew up around marketing and I had no idea. I had no clue. I didn't know it. I didn't know anything about it.
Hmm.
I didn't know that was such a big part of my life. And then people later on are like, "How'd you come up with these concepts and ideas?" And I'm like, "I don't know. They just hit me."
Hmm.
And then it was literally about a year or two ago where I sat down and actually thought about it more. I'm like, "Where did this stuff come from?" Because I had a college student interview me, and they're like, "Where do you think some of this creativity came from, and where do you think some of these things stemmed from?" And I was like, I think I have to go back to my childhood where a life was provided for me where I didn't have to worry about where my next meal was coming from. A lot of comfort, a lot of love, a lot of really amazing times spent with my cousins, spent with my relatives, and it was at my grandparents' house. And I remember those days being like, there would be a couple kids playing wiffle ball, there'd be a couple kids playing basketball. Somebody would always be doing something that they're not supposed to be doing. Somebody might randomly have like a sledgehammer.
Hmm.
Somebody might randomly have a screwdriver and they might be, digging into the concrete or doing something weird. But it all just worked out and there wasn't a ton of the parents were involved. I mean, our aunts and uncles, they were there. A lot of times they were orchestrating the games and different things that we did, but a lot of times they would go inside, maybe they would eat, and we would still be out there just doing whatever. And so we had the opportunity to just think and dream and to do whatever. And a lot of times I was by myself just chucking a football up in the air.
Hmm.
For the longest time in the family, I was the youngest person in the entire family for a really long time. And so I was just kind of always off on the side doing something until my cousin Kyle later came along, and that was part of the reason why when Kyle came along that I ended up playing with him so much because I remember, as everybody else got older,
Hmm.
I was just like out there throwing the football to myself, and so I was like, I'm just going to play with him until he gives up, and I didn't
Hmm.
realize how hard that was to do with someone that's 3 or 4 or 5. They want to be out there forever. So a lot of that stuff is stuff that I grew up around. My grandfather, he built his own, people, I think they always think that we're moving forward. And I think that we're actually moving backwards. My grandfather, built a car. he, he built a car that still runs to this day, which is incredible.
Like from scratch though, right? Like
I
he.
don't know exactly how he did it. These guys probably have some insight into
Yeah.
how he did it and everything. But to paint a picture of it for you, it has a keg
Oh,
as its
sick.
gas tank.
That's awesome.
But he also built his own house. And then when it comes to my dad, my dad's pretty handy. He knows how to do a lot of things. Um, he would probably be able to figure out how to like build his own house. But then me and my brothers, we wouldn't have any clue on how to even where to start. And
Hmm.
I was probably the least handy out of everybody. I don't know what the hell's going on with my car. If something breaks in my car, just buy a new one because I'm not going to bother trying to figure this out. And somebody might say, "Oh, you just need a new battery." you know, I just have no idea when it comes to those things. But I was already around people that were creative
Hmm.
and people who had My grandfather in some way, I guess, was like a genius because he sold used cars and he had to figure out, how do I make this car look better? How do I make this boat look better? Whatever it was he was selling, he had to figure out how it can run better and how it can look good enough for him to get it off his lot so he can kind of keep moving forward. My dad worked for IBM for 20 plus years and was released from that job after putting in a lot of time and a lot of effort, worked his way up the corporate ladder, did everything, like bled for that company. And then when it was time for them to make a business decision, boom, he was gone. And so that was a huge lesson that I also kind of didn't realize unfolded in front of my eyes. I mean, we went from having a lot of money to living in a house. We had a basketball court, we had a pool, we had all the weights that you could possibly imagine, to being all the way kicked down to living in a trailer. So we kind of went full circle with finances. But what was always remaining and was always standing there the entire time was my grandfather was always marketing his business. When I got a little older, he stopped doing that because he just wasn't as active with that. And then my dad with his own business, every time my dad would, name the company something, Bell Financial Services, he would make a hat. He'd make a shirt and he'd give it to his friends. He would put money into the booster club at our local high school or local whatever school, and then he would put his logo on it. He did it with everything all the time. His license plate said "Buy a house," and then everyone knew he was a real estate person. Our mailbox was this giant, embarrassing thing that said like Bell on it in huge letters. He had it like welded that way, and then underneath it said like real estate and taxes or something like that. And I was always just like, oh my God, this is this is so like gaudy and ridiculous. But our home, my dad worked from home. People didn't work from home back then. That was different. You didn't really see that, but he did tax after tax after tax after tax. The other thing I remember as a kid, and this was just really cool for me to, like, I don't know, talk to my dad about. And you were asking a question about, the $100 and $80 and how exciting that is when you're a kid.
Yeah.
I remember my dad, he would like knock on the door of like our weight room, which was connected to where he did his taxes. So he's working on one end and I'm working on the other.
Yeah.
And he'd come over and he would knock and he would be like, okay, he's like, you've been in here for 45 minutes. He's like, I just made $150. And then he would like, leave and he'd come back and he's like, I made another $150, so he'd tell me how much money he made, or he would like give me the money at the end of the day and like I'd add it up and I'd be all excited. I'd be like, oh, this is cool. Then I remember one day in particular, I'm looking at like where these checks are coming from and they all say Bell on them. And I'm like, Dad, this is like our own family. And I was like, and a lot of it was like either family or friends. And I'm like, you make money off of our own family and our own friends? He goes, yeah, isn't it great? He's like, this is amazing. So some of that like marketing stuff and some of those things, they were kind of always there. And the reason why I'm bringing up so much of that backstory is so that people understand. You always need to understand where people's starting point is. So for me to make some of the jumps that I made, maybe they weren't as big of courageous, crazy leaps as you may think. Maybe there was things previously set up that allowed me to be more comfortable with making those jumps because I had maybe a skill set that didn't just fall out of the sky, but was around me and surrounded me from the time I was a kid. When it comes to actually trying to figure out how to set goals, I'm not a huge fan of setting goals. I'm more of a fan of making a checklist, because a checklist is an easier thing to accomplish. A goal can sometimes be daunting and it can sometimes give you a lot of anxiety. The things that give us anxiety are things that haven't happened yet, right? A lot of times it's the
unknown.
It's the unknown. It's tomorrow. It's like,
what might happen, what could happen.
Right. A checklist is a lot more foolproof. And if you said, even if your checklist looks a little bit like a goal, let's just say you are a personal trainer and you want to just You're like, I just want to figure out how to make a little bit more money. Well, why not just take that dialogue, write it down, and say, I want to pick up one more client this month. Just start with that. Start with something small. Start with something easy. I learned those lessons in the gym. I tell people all the time in seminars, you're not going to get thrown in jail for doing things the right way. But the way that people lift, you would think that they are going to get thrown in jail
Yeah.
because they want to always add weight. And it's like, why are we adding resistance to something that you haven't performed properly in the first place? Why don't we go back and make sure we do this the right way before we start talking about you lifting 300 pounds, 400 pounds, 500 pounds? You do things the right way, and you end up in a spot a lot faster than you ever anticipated or that you ever saw. When you did your 205-pound bench the other day, you had no idea of your strength level, but that was like a 20-pound bench PR, which kind of seems like it came out of nowhere, but it didn't, because we've been doing the reps the right way. We actually abandoned we abandoned strength a little bit. We went after just doing it the right way.
Mm-hmm.
We focused in and honed in on other things, and as a result, you got stronger because we weren't chasing. You don't chase goals. You don't chase. This was said to me in a seminar one time. I'll never forget it. It was by Mikhail Kokylev, who is a 7-time Russian champion in Olympic weightlifting, one of the strongest men to ever walk the face of the earth, a strongman competitor, a power lifter, just an absolute animal.
Mm-hmm.
And he took a ring that was hanging from the ceiling that the CrossFitters use for gymnastics moves. And he took the ring and he grabbed it and he pulled it towards him. And he says, this ring represents Pretty Woman. He goes, take Pretty Woman, pull her towards you, and watch what happens. And he let it go. And the ring, sure enough, swung away from him. And he goes, pull Pretty Woman towards you, she go away. He goes, push Pretty Woman away, and she comes towards you. So these things can't be forced, right? These things can't be, you can't force trying to be great, right? You can't force these things. They have to be a progression over a period of time of your actions and your thoughts aligning with the goals that you set out to do. And the thing to remember about goals, these are the things that you said that you wanted to do. So when you're thinking, oh my God, this sucks. Well, remember who set that up in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
It was you. It was you that set it up. When I'm doing my cardio in the morning and I'm on the freaking Stairmaster for 45 minutes, I'm the one who set up that goal. So even if it's something that I don't necessarily want to do, I got to talk myself to get through it. This whole thing, everything, when it comes to success, always comes down to this one simple fact of you have to force yourself to do the things that you don't want to do when you normally don't want to do them. And you're going to have to abandon things that are fun. You're going to have to abandon loved ones. You're going to have to abandon fun food, drinking. Like there's going to be stuff that you have to be like, you know what, I got to go. And if you think about that, you do that in your everyday life anyway. So it's really just a matter of stepping it up a notch. It's a matter of making a priority. When it comes to some of these things, when it comes to these goals, your things can be spread out over a period of time. So it's not like you have to try to get to that goal that day. Mm-hmm. So you don't want to be a maniac about it to the point where you shut everybody else out. There's going to have to be some give and take, and then plus you can't have, which is the most important piece of this puzzle is consistency. If you're going to go after it like a maniac, you can't have any consistency. Mm-hmm. If now you're getting resistance from your wife, who's supposed to be like kind of your biggest supporter, but you're neglecting that relationship, or you're neglecting your children, or you're neglecting your dad or your mom or some of these other people, well, now you got everything just really, really pulling you down. Mm. And now you really have a problem, because now you're going to be stressed out. You're kind of turning into a different person. The reason why I know about these kinds of things is I've been trapped by them before. I had a goal to squat 1,100 pounds. I had a goal to bench press 600 pounds. I've had these huge goals that are, in some way like irrational, right? And it takes an irrational mindset to try to hang on to those goals in the face of adversity, in the face of many injuries, many torn pecs, and this and that. But you have to there has to be a point where we go back and we look at trying to balance things out. You watch like a NASCAR race or something, right? They have to they got to keep changing the tires out, right?
Mm-hmm.
The car is going to become unbalanced at certain points, but so will you. You will be unbalanced. If you go from making $30,000 a year to making $60,000 a year, you will be more unbalanced in that year than you were the year before. You'll be with your family less. You'll be around your wife less.
Right.
But where's your goal at? And also, can you get back on track? Can you recalibrate?
Mm-hmm.
Can you change your tires? Yeah, you sure can. Can you have a conversation with your wife? Can you have a conversation with the family and say, hey, guys, you know what? For the next couple of weeks, I got to be a dick because I got to work a lot, because I have to do this a lot. But as soon as August hits, you know where we're going? We're all going to Hawaii for a week, and we're all going to have some fun. These are things that you can always get back. Being a parent doesn't happen in a day. Being a parent is a crazy lifelong commitment, and it's not always going to be easy. It's not always going to be good. But how many times have you seen on TV, or even just we have had friends here on the podcast like, yeah, my dad walked out on me when I was 10,
mm-hmm.
and you're like, well, shit, man, that sounds awful.
Yeah.
Like, what's your relationship with your dad now? They're like, oh, it's great. And you're like, what? They're like, yeah, that's my dad. So I'm not saying to walk out on your kids and walk out on your family, but I'm saying it doesn't have to happen. It doesn't have to all happen in one day. And there's different circumstances that happen for different people. And as soon as that dad comes back around and he says, you know what, I really screwed up. I made a lot of mistakes. I would love to be part of your life. It's really rare for someone to be like, no, you know what, you weren't around. I'll see you later. I don't want you, near
mm-hmm.
me or near my kid. Every once in a while you see that. That does happen, but it just goes to show you that it's a lifelong process, and nobody wants to be without someone loving them, really, right? And so they usually allow someone to come back in.
Yeah. What about so just starting out, setting goals? Are you yelling it at the top of your lungs on the top buildings, telling everybody what you're going to do?
No.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's good to put things out in the universe a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But I would suggest that people do what my buddy John Cena does. And John Cena has a great way of saying, if John Cena tells you that he learned how to speak Chinese, that means he's already 8 weeks in to speaking Chinese. He already knows how to speak Chinese, and the next thing out of his mouth is, could be a 3-minute rap song that's in Cantonese or some shit, right?
Yeah.
So, cowards are people, in my opinion, that talk about things that they're never going to do. They're going to be people that consistently say, yeah, I'm going to do this. I want to do this. And they just talk about it all the time. And it's like, do I have to really listen to this guy's story one more time about how he wants to open up a freaking coffee shop and how he wants to quit his job? I just can't handle it anymore. Just give me a gun. Let me just blow my brains out right here. I can't hear this story one more time. Do I really got to listen to this girl tell me that she wants to lose 20 pounds? I can't handle it anymore. Just do what needs to be done to lose 20 pounds and just get it over with. And so when you're starting to set these goals, and I made the analogy in the past about playing Mario Brothers when you're a kid and you're trying to jump on top of that flag to get the most amount of points as you can, you have to make sure you're the closest to the edge, right? Which is a little risky because you can fall down to the bottom and not end up with that many points. But you want to try to get close to your goal first before you make any sort of jump. Before you're going to make this running, diving, crazy leap towards it, you better make sure there's some momentum going on. You better make sure that you have that you have at least attempted to go towards it first. If you're going to start talking about walking more, it would be just easier if you just woke up tomorrow and just started walking more. And then 5 days down the road, you tell your buddy, like, yeah, I've been walking every day. This is great. My dad has been training every day for the last 10 days. And my cousin Steven was like, man, he looks great, and he's excited about it. But he's not going around telling everybody he's got this crazy fitness goal.
Mhm.
He just kind of I invited him in, and he just started. He's doing all these weird movements that I don't know what he's doing half the time, but I just encourage it and let it go on from there. But what I think, people are always looking for these kind of cheat codes. People are always looking for a secret. And the most boring thing in the world is just heavy doses every day of consistency and hammering the hell out of people with being consistent. If you do something for 10 years and you work hard at it, even if you sucked in the beginning, you're going to be pretty damn good at it. Whether it's martial arts, whether it's tennis, whether it's soccer, lifting, it doesn't really matter what it is. I mean, your talent might not have started out being that great to begin with. Your starting point might not have been awesome, but if you keep doing it and other people then you're going to be ahead of them. When I go to Gold's Gym, I started training at Gold's Gym over 20 years ago. I got a lot of friends there, a lot of people that I really care about a lot, but I'm not afraid to tell you that a lot of them are spinning their wheels. A lot of them are in the same spot. When I was 20 years old and I met a lot of these guys, they're in the exact same spot 20 years later as they were before. Am I better than them at anything? I don't think so. They're all in good shape. They're all strong. They all, train some celebrities or athletes, or they all do a lot of great things. But what they didn't work on is they never worked on personal development. They never worked on trying to make themselves better. They're trapped inside their own gym. They're trapped inside their own spot, their own space. They created their own world, and they're very comfortable. That's why a lot of them won't even come up here to Sacramento. They won't take an hour flight to come up here to Sacramento because this scares them. And these are friends of mine. I don't have any problem saying. I would say that they were right here. They're scared. They don't want to see this. They don't want to walk in here and go, "Holy fuck! What have
I been doing for the last 20 years?"
Yeah. What did you build? But remember, we talked about it. My friend came in here the other day,
Right.
and he was just full of compliments. It's because he's strong, and he's successful himself. He's not the same guy.
Mhm.
When I met him 15 years ago, he's a lot different. He's improved his skill set. He is a better person than he was when I met him 15 years ago. He's got 3 children to care for, and that changes a lot of things really quickly as well. But personal development is, I mean, it could come in so many different forms. But too many people work on their job. It's plain and simple. They work on their job and they don't work on themselves. You have to work on yourself. You have to be with yourself, to be by yourself. Those are all things that are actually really hard to execute on when you're a dad and when you're a husband and you're trying to be good at those things and you actually care about those things. You want to participate in your kid's life. But you could really be missing out on some outstanding opportunities.
Yeah, and I think people they have a sense of guilt if if they're not at work or if they're not with their family.
Yeah.
It's like you should take that time to go train or go do whatever to go work on yourself. But a lot of people are like, no, I can't be selfish that way. I have a family or I have this and that to do and whatnot. But
those are the things that really get to be hard.
Yeah.
They really get to be really, really tough. But I think that those things a lot of times are an excuse. I think they're thrown out there to be a little excuse. I think if you really wanted to make it work, you'd make it a priority and you'd figure out how to get it in there because you still got times for Netflix and chill, right?
Right.
You still have time to be on Instagram. You still have time to be on Facebook. There's still other places. There's other corners in the day that you're cutting for some reason. and it ends up at the end of the day kind of biting you in your ass, and you're like, I got to go to my son's basketball game. Well, of course you got to go to your son's basketball game. That is the most important thing. Go to his basketball game, wake up at 4 a.m. and train, or whatever that is, whatever that goal is that you got. Start
Yeah.
running, whatever it is.
Yeah. No, I think that's so huge. Like, people are they're essentially trapped. They feel trapped, but because how often do we hear, "Oh, I don't have time for this or that," but no, you have time. You do have time.
Yeah, and that goes back to just kind of setting those goals and keeping the goal. People set their goals way too high a lot of times. I
Hmm.
never talked about bench pressing 600 pounds until I bench pressed 551, and I was like, okay, I benched 551 and it actually moved pretty good. I know I can at least do another 20 or 30 pounds. What is it going to look like? What is it going to look like if I really trained and I really paid attention to my diet and my sleep and everything? What's that going to look like if I put everything I can into it?
Hmm.
Now, here's another another part that makes all this really hard. There's going to have to be a point in time where you abandon things. There's going to be a time where you have to say, you know what? I got punched in the face too many times. I can't fight this person anymore.
Yeah.
This person's jabbing me in the face too hard, too many times. I got to move my head or put my hands up or like something different. I got to tell the ref to call the fight or something. I mean,
Yeah.
there's going to be times where you have to do that, and I had to do that with a 600-pound bench. I had to do that with an 1,100-pound squat. There's going to be times where you're going to have to figure out that you're going to have to retreat, and you have to have the strength to do that. That's not a weakness. That's a strength to be bold enough to say, you know what, I tried that, and I really actually tried it multiple times, and for whatever reason I was not able to make it.
Hmm.
And that happens in life. I mean, sometimes you're going to go against someone that's smarter than you. Sometimes you're going to go against someone that's faster than you. And no matter how much you train, or no matter how much you work on your speed, that other person is just faster, or they just jump higher. And you're like, damn it, I can't figure this. Maybe if you keep working on running for the next 30 years and that guy decides he's not going to run anymore. And I mean, maybe you can hang on, but you might be missing out on a lot of opportunities, other opportunities in life, while you're pursuing that goal. And so for me, I got hurt too many times trying to bench 600 pounds. Tore my pec, I tore my tricep. Um, I'm lucky that I can still do what I do.
Hmm.
Trying to squat 1,100 pounds too. I fell with 1,085, and some lessons are learned faster than others. When I fell with 1,085, I was like, I'm out. I'm done. Dropped the microphone. Never squatted in a competition again after that point. Actually, I'm sorry. I did one time because I wanted to come back and kind of prove to myself that I wasn't going to go out that way, and so I did
Hmm.
it one time. But um, it quickly told me, hey man, you know what? You got to really slow down. I didn't learn as well as I should have because then I ended up going for that 600-pound bench not too long after that. But all that you can do has to be enough. So when you're setting these goals and when you're working towards these things, if you sit there and all that you can do doesn't mean 100%, by the way, either. It's all that you can do for the time. It's all that you can do for the given days that you're given with the time, and other commitments that you have to be factored in there. So if somebody said, could you put more work into it? I probably could have, but at the cost of what? Right? It's my own goal. It matters, and it means a lot to me, and it means a lot to the people that were following the journey. Um, but my son, who's sitting in the room right now, he's not going to be like, "Hey, Dad, I wanted to thank you for all the times you weren't around and you chased after that 600-pound bench. That was awesome."
Hmm. Yeah.
Right? And it's not going to be a memorable thing for him. He's going to be like, "Shit, man! All he's going to know is that I wasn't there." Right?
Hmm.
And so your 100% probably isn't realistically 100%. Sometimes some of the people that we follow or some of the people that we're watching, when somebody's watching someone like myself or some of these professional bodybuilders, you got to kind of also keep in mind, okay, they can set up their entire day to the way that they want, and maybe I can't. So maybe my days have to look different. I'm not going to use the day as an excuse. Do you have a 9 to 5 job, or you work 50 hours a week or 60 hours a week? I ran into an Uber driver, which cannot believe that they don't like regulate this, but the guy physically showed me on his phone that he worked 100-hour week. I was like, wasn't even
Whoa.
aware there's that many.
Yeah.
I wasn't even aware there's that many hours in a week. It was just like, I don't know. It was insane. It was insane, but it's going to have to match up with the other things that you have going on in your life. And if you're trying to have a career while you're chasing down a fitness goal, then maybe things need to be spread out
Right.
a little bit more. I'll also say this too: if there's not room in your life to audible, if there's not room in your life when you go home and you have a plan and you're like, okay, it was a long day, but I still got to go train, and your wife is like, hey, I made your favorite dish, and maybe you had something else in mind food wise because you're on a special plan or whatever. I made your favorite dish, and we're going to go to a movie, when you're done eating dinner. It's like, come on, you don't have any flexibility. Maybe there's times where you don't have that flexibility. That makes some sense. Maybe there's time, but that would be a discussion that you'd have, saying, hey, I don't want to eat like that next couple weeks. So I'm doing this, kind of the thing that I'm stuck in right now at this bodybuilding show. But you should have the flexibility when someone says, hey, you know what? I haven't seen you in a couple years. It would be amazing to go grab some pizza with you and have a beer or something like that, right? And that's going to be where you're going to have to be able to make a compromise. But your training and everything should be intact enough to where that's not going to throw you off.
Right.
That's not going to that's not going to make you look any different, really.
It's just going to push that goal out a couple more days or whatever. It's not the end of that goal.
That's 100%.
Yeah.
So yeah, I always like to kind of make sure that those goals are, kind of more in line with like a checklist. A favorite quote of mine is from a book called Iron Will, and it says, that which dazzles mortal eyes is often just perseverance in disguise. It's not, you can take the same word and say consistency. Like, people are like, oh my God, this guy is great. He is great, but what made him great was just being good for a really long period of time. That's all it really is.
Like, Mark, you're so jacked. What happened?
Yeah, I wish I knew.
Yeah, but no. It's
how long you got?
Exactly. Yeah, but no, it's because like how many months ago now has it been, or two, whatever. I lost track of when Hani was in here.
Oh yeah. Well, he was here. Yeah, he was here June 3rd, and then I started the diet June 10th, and it's August, I don't know, 16th or something now.
Yeah, but it's like every time you meet someone new, it's like everyone's so shocked.
Right.
And I'm not saying that I'm not either, but like I'm watching every step of the way, and it's like, well, he's putting in a lot of work, a lot of consistency. So it's not just a magic something, like it's the stuff that people aren't seeing.
Yeah, and it also started, 30 years ago.
Right. Yeah.
It's been that long. It's been 30, it's been 30 years. And it's the consistency is what always baffles people, because when they try to keep asking you questions about your diet, they try to keep asking you questions about how you balance, if you drive a nice car, you have a nice home, how do you balance it all, man? You got, a beautiful wife, you got kids. I see at all these baseball games and these tournaments, and you're all over the place. How are you balancing it? And the truth is there's going to be times where you're just out of balance for a little while. It just has to be. My dad was out of balance for a long time when he was working for IBM, and I remember, like, I don't remember the conversation. I don't remember like a fight between my parents. I just remember that he wasn't around that much, and then he was. And so I always assumed that my parents had some sort of conversation somewhere along the line. I didn't think about it for years, and then my mom told me, like, maybe like 2 years ago. She goes, yeah, I told your dad one time. I was like, you're not around. And my dad was like, what? And she's like, yeah, you're getting obsessed with your work, and it's great because we have more money, but you're not here. And he was like, oh my God, like he almost didn't even, he didn't know, because it's like, yeah, go make more money. All right, well, I'll make more money. And then you put all your effort into that, and then you realize, oh shit, You can't chase after too many different things at one time, right?
Right. Yeah. Going back to your checklist and people thinking that they don't have enough time. My favorite quote of yours, I don't know if it's your original quote or if you got it from somebody, but about the more you do, the more you can handle.
Mm-hmm.
I I look at what I've been able to do training with you, with the podcast, with photography, with everything we do here. And if you were to rewind back like a year and a half and tell me that I would have to do all this, I'd tell you you're crazy and there's no possible way that that's going to happen. But every day I'm chipping away at something else, and by watching you do everything, I'm like, oh shit, this is possible. So I think when people look at like whatever their goal is, they want to lose 10 pounds, lose whatever, be jacked, whatever it is, they look at the end game and they don't see the steps that is in between there. So like I think making a checklist would be kind of awesome. Whether it even be just like, starting with the 10-minute walks or getting a gym membership, whatever it is, coming to super training.
Right.
And then eventually people will find out that, okay, last month I could barely do that 10-minute walk and still show up at work. This month they're able to do that, plus go to the gym 3 times a week. Next month it's going to be even better. That's why that's one of my favorite quotes of yours, because it's so like damn accurate.
Yeah, I always say do more, become more, and you think about the opposite of that, right? It's like if you're doing less, the less you do, the easier it is to do less and less. We've all had times where we're depressed, we're down in the dumps about whatever. And then there's so many people out there, saying that they're depressed, saying they have anxiety. Well, yeah, you're depressed and you have anxiety about being depressed and having anxiety because you're not doing anything.
Right.
You need to really force it. And I think everyone, I don't want to downplay depression because it could be a brutal thing. And there's some people that they need help. And so I'm not going to downplay mental illness, especially having, a brother basically pass away from that. But I even think with him and his position, I think he could have done more positive things for himself that would have made himself feel better about himself, and that potentially could have had some life-altering changes. But the more that you do, the more that you can end up handling. And you think about some of these people that we're looking up to, The Rock or whoever it is on social media that you're a fan of, these celebrities or whoever it might be. If you were to ask them if they could get better, they would say Tom Brady. They would say yes.
Yeah.
Could you do more? Yeah. They would say, they can. They know that they can. And they're already able to handle so much. But when you're somebody that is handling a lot, you're handling a lot of different things in a given day, and someone comes at you with something real negative, it's so easy to stiff arm that problem and just be like, I don't like. Irrelevant. Don't even care. Sometimes in some of the meetings that we have here, I'll bring something up, and then people bring up all these little tiny things, and it makes my head almost explode off my shoulders because I'm like, logistics? Who the hell cares about that? Let's not worry about that. This is a cool idea. Let's just run with it, okay?
Yeah.
But it's their job to kind of think of some of those smaller things, and it's and for me, if I think of those smaller things, then it kills any sort of creativity. I can't think the right way. But yeah, I mean, with you, you were doing videos and doing some photos, and then it started to progress from there. And as you became more comfortable, you're able to move a lot faster on everything.
Yeah.
The more that you worked on photos, the faster you got with them. The more you worked on videos, the faster that you got with them. The more you put into it, the more you were able to turn out. And then if I said, hey, can you do this project? And then I'm not even thinking because I don't think a lot. And I pass 3 other things on to you. You're not like, oh, well, there's those other things and this one's going to come out this time and this one's going to, you're just like, yeah, got it. And then I know that I got to give some leeway on timing because just there's other things going on in your life. But a lot of times when we do a photo shoot, the photos come back to me the same day. We do a whole entire photo shoot, the photos come back to me the same day. Remember the other day we had a bunch of meetings. We lifted, we did a photo shoot, we did tons of stuff. We were coming off something the previous day too. We were pretty dead, and you were like, man, it's hard to even take photos. I don't understand. You're like, I kind of don't understand how you're continuing to
Yeah.
go. You know.
Yeah, because I was beat from, yeah, like Mark said, that we trained, I think, early, or it was already a long day, and it was barely like 10 o'clock. And we wanted to get some photos done of some apparel and some gear and whatnot. And I'm just sitting there trying to like get the camera going and just start moving my lights around. And I look up, and Mark's still flexing. He's doing this, he's doing that.
Oh
He's just
yeah.
looking jacked. And I'm just like, I'm kind of gassed, and I'm just like, dude, I don't know how you're still going. Like, and I'm just taking the pictures, but you're there, like you're posing, and you're doing everything.
I was faking it, man. I was dying. I was wrong.
I just know I was beat, but
Yeah.
I mean, we got through it. Pictures came out awesome.
Yeah.
Because we ended up going to Davis, and that's where you took your shirt off inside of Phil's coffee. That was nuts. Maybe we were a little delirious.
Yeah, that was a fun day.
Yeah.
That was really cool. But I think just to kind of bring it home here is you have to kind of fuel yourself for all these things too. So if you're going to have these goals, goal number one is is to make sure that you sleep. Goal number two in general is just to just generally take care of yourself, whatever that means for you.
Yeah.
Just make sure that you're okay mentally, physically. If that means you have to exercise a bunch of times a week, then that's what it means. If it means that you have to eat healthier, then eat. I mean, I'm going to recommend that to everybody. But if you don't have the sleep, you're not going to be able to get anything else done. You're not going to be able to, any of these things we talked about, they're all going to go flying out the window if you're trying to ride with 5 hours of sleep every night. Yeah. It will not work. And at some point, it will catch up to you. Your diet doesn't even work properly when you're not sleeping correctly. Your decision making is everything is screwed. So, I'm not going to sit here and just say, everyone always says you need 8 hours. Just whatever amount of sleep you're getting, just take inventory of how you feel. If you probably just need more, though. I mean, most people usually do need 7 or 8 hours of sleep. It's kind of a minimum requirement of human beings. That's what you need to kind of sustain each and every day. So sleep is a huge thing. Make sure that you're feeling good mentally, physically, and things like that. And then you're going to be able to execute on whatever the hell else it is that you need to work on. But you can kind of look at different categories of your life and say, where am I with my family? Where am I with my lifting? Where am I with my job? Where am I with these different things? As you start to go down that checklist, you still are going to need to remember the fact that you have to make time for yourself and your own personal development. There's, when you're on the plane and they say in case of emergency, make sure you put on the oxygen mask and then help, your child or the elderly or whoever you can help. Well, they do that so that you don't die, because if you die or you're incapacitated, you can't help anybody else. And it's the same thing with just your everyday life. If you're not okay, you can't do anything for anybody else. You can't help anybody else. So you have to make sure that you have the strength to do that. In order to have the strength to do that, you got to fuel yourself with food, and you have to make sure that you're sleeping. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to do all these fun things that we're talking about right here.
Yeah, you wanted to talk a little bit about willpower today?
Yeah. Before I mention that, just try some little things. You hear about these no carb diets, or you hear about these certain plans. There's a plan called Whole 30, where you basically eat whole foods for 30 days. There's a lot of different diet plans out there. But what if you just try to do the diet on a scale of 1 to 10? What if you did the diet for one day, and you can honestly at the end of that day give yourself a 10? You got a 10 out of 10. You're 100%. You did everything that was asked of you, and you did that for that one day. That would be a great goal to set. I want to see if I did that one day, and I actually felt pretty good, or it really hurt my stomach. Well, maybe it hurt your stomach because maybe it's so foreign to you because you never ate that way before, and you had too many vegetables, or you ate way more protein than's normal for you. So you might have to kind of try it again and kind of feel it out. But what's wrong with doing something the right way, trying something for a few hours or trying something for a day? I I don't know. It could be anything. It could be anything. You can apply it to just about anything, but you're just going to have to try it and then see if you can string together a few days. I mean, think about how pathetic this is. There's people that are listening to this right now, and if I said don't eat any carbs for the next 2 weeks, and there's people that are listening right now that could probably use it, they won't actually do it. 14, just go 14 days. What's wrong with it? It's not it's not that bad. Or even just read every day for 14 days. Read 3 pages from any book that you want to read for the next 14 days. Just apply yourself to it. Try it. You know, maybe it's a habit that starts to stay with you for a long period of time. Maybe it's something you can carry over. Maybe you try it and you're like, you know what, that sucked. I hated it. That's okay. You don't do it again. You find something else that you want to try to move into.
At least you can say you tried it though, instead of I
Right.
don't read. I'm not good at it.
100%. The willpower ends up being a big part of all this stuff because, you know, people they'll say if you're relying on willpower, it's not going to work. Well, yeah, initially, but your willpower can be educated. Your willpower can be enhanced. Your willpower can become stronger. Um, your your will. A lot of times, these things end up being you have you have your goals, and then from your goals, you have your thoughts, and you also have your actions. Here's where people get in trouble: is your thoughts can and usually will and do become part of your actions. So you have to be careful with where you spend your time. What are you looking at? You know, what are you doing with your time? Are you zooming in on girls' butts on Instagram and you're married? Probably not the best usage of your time. Uh, Look, everyone's guilty of looking at sexy and appealing things, right? I mean, that's life, right? That's where we're at. Um, but is it going to get you towards the things that you want to get to? Is it in, is it really fulfilling the commitments that you currently have in your life, or is it kind of an offshoot of all those things? There's always going to be a little good and bad to everything. I'm not saying that you can walk around and be perfect, but maybe it's not a great usage of your time. And there's going to be some time that you do need just downtime. You need to watch a TV show and just have your brain go numb for a little while and almost not pay attention to something, because sometimes we just kind of need to power down. But your thoughts and your actions, they run side by side. And if you're going to tell yourself that you're going to get in better shape, and you wake up the next day and you do your cardio, boom, check. Put a little check in there. Bing. You get to check that off. If you are having conversation with yourself, you're like, you know what? I'm tired of people calling me dumb. I'm not standing for this shit anymore. I'm going to start reading. I'm going to start going to seminars. I'm going to become the smartest person in the fitness space anybody's ever seen, and I'm going to create products, and I'm going to kick the shit out of everybody. And I'm going to remind them of it every single day. If your actions are matching up with some of those goals that you have over a period of time, that ends up becoming your character. Your character is going to be something you're going to be able to rely on the rest of your life. Your character is something that your other employees or employer is going to be able to rely on. Your willpower, however, it can waver a lot, but your willpower can be strengthened. Anything that we do can be strengthened, and anything that we do, you can add some resistance to it. You can make things a little bit harder. So if you're running, let's say you run and you're trying to challenge yourself and you want to run a 6-minute mile. Well, maybe you get off the track. Maybe you don't run on the track for a few weeks, and maybe you run some hills. You just add resistance. You increase the variable. What if you went to the beach and you sprinted in the sand? That's a way different type of running. What if you stopped doing a mile run and started to run further? Or what if you started to run shorter but faster with higher intensity? We do all these things in the gym. We take the reps, we take the sets, we continue to try to add and make it progressively harder. Your goals can progressively change as you keep moving forward. if you wanted to make $100,000 in a year, um, no one ever stops at that and puts their hands up and they're like, "That's it, did it, cashing that in, and I made it." It doesn't really work that way, and that's why you see guys like Jeff Bezos, who owns Amazon, Elon Musk, or any of these guys. You're like, why don't they just, like, don't they have enough? Why don't they just stop? There's Bill Burr, the comedian. He's like, you ever see the jacked guy in the gym? He's like, the guy's shredded. He's all pumped up, and you just want to go up to him, pat him on the shoulder, and be like, dude, just go home. Like, you won, you did it. Whatever you're trying to do, like, you're doing a great job. Take a day off and go eat a cupcake or whatever, right? And it's because people they always want to get better, and they're continuing to work on themselves. They're continuing to challenge themselves. That's how they got there in the first place. And so, while your willpower will waver here and there, and you're going to eat a cookie when you're not supposed to eat a cookie, and you're going to you're going to sleep in when you didn't want to sleep in. There's going to be all these different things that you do. It can be built. Try doing something for 2 days in a row. Try doing something for 3 days in a row. Try doing something for 3 weeks in a row. Talk to a friend and say, you know what, man? Monday through Friday, I want to meet you at the gym at 5 a.m. for the next 2 weeks. Just during the week or whatever, right? It's 10 days out of your life. It could be life altering. That might be a pattern that you might embrace that for a long period of time. Or, I hear some people say they don't have time to lift, or they don't have time to get to the gym. Then I'll ask them about their schedule, and turns out there's always some times that you can slip in there somewhere. And I'll say, well, what's your work look like? And they'll say, yeah, I usually work like Monday through Friday. Okay, Saturday, Sunday, boom, 2 days a week. Done. You already have 2 days available where it sounds like you could work out. Yeah, but I spend a lot of time with my family. Oh, really? You spend a lot of time with your family at 5 a.m. on Saturday, Sunday? Is that true? Okay, cool. There's always time. There's always somewhere that you can make it work. My uncle, who's on his way here right now, was a coach for a long time and a teacher for a long time, and he had a 9-to-5 job for a million years. He ran the gamut of doing all kinds of different things, but he would wake up at 4:30, 5 o'clock every morning and run. He's one of the few in the family that's been able to hang on and have some level of fitness, but he's done that for the last 30 years, and that's in New York. The weather's not great. The weather is the opposite of that. I'm dedicated and I love doing what I do, but I don't know if I'm waking up and getting into 10-degree weather to go for a run.
That's nuts.
It is pretty nuts.
And you've said it before on the podcast about waking up at 4 a.m. or 5 a.m., whatever it may be, to go work out. You might actually get something more than that. You might show up at Gold's and, oh shit, there's Mark Bell training, and you might have a camera on you, and you might start filming Mark Bell, and Mark Bell might ask you if you want to have a job.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just weird things happen when you're when you're trying to better yourself.
When you're on the ball.
Yeah, just weird things like that can happen, and people don't understand that either. The more you do, the more you handle.
I mean, you were scared to come to the gym, kind of, right? You were like nervous about it. You came to the gym.
Yeah.
And Andrew took some photos at a seminar that we had, and he was like, "Hey, hopefully it's okay that I take some pictures today, and I just want to get permission before I do any of that." I was like, "Permission?" I'm like, "I need a freaking photographer." Like, you got a card or something?
Yeah, that was sick. That was Of
course, he had a card on him because he was prepared. He was ready to go.
Day changed my life. Just met Mark Bell.
Changed it forever.
Yeah, it's always funny when people ask, like, "How did you get here?" Oh, I shook Mark Bell's hand one day, and that was it.
And there you go.
I just like to leave him at that. That's all I did.
And they're confused.
Yeah.
My cousin, who's sitting right here, she actually told me that she would sleep in her workout clothes a lot of times, because she's like, you know what? In the morning, I'm just disoriented. It's freezing. She's like, the second that I go to get out of bed and it's cold, she's like, I just want to go back to bed.
Yeah.
Do whatever you got to do to set shit up, and that's a huge factor as well. I've talked the entire time about resistance, but you want to make your resistance, you want to make things smoother. You want to make things easier. That's why I invented the slingshot, and that's why we have knee sleeves and belts and stuff. It's to make everything easier. It's to make the lifting so it's not so damn painful all the time. you want to set your days up that way too. Make the day less painful. If you know what you're going to eat in the morning, why not just cook it the night before? Or have it like as ready as you can.
Yeah.
Get your coffee and just so you could. All you got to do when you wake up, you don't have to change anything out or do anything. You literally just push a button and boom, there it comes out.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever supplements or whatever routine you normally have in the morning, just try to have everything as set as you can. The shoes you're going to wear, your socks.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, get these things out because if you're waking up early, it's going to be dark as hell. You're going to wake up everybody else if you got to pop all the lights on and everything. But it's this extra 10 minutes, those extra 15 minutes that really throw you off and really screw you up.
Yeah, set yourself up for an easy win.
Get yourself that victory.
Yep. Yeah, a lot of people were asking you like how Andy took it when you're trying to balance everything. You're spending a lot of time chasing 600 and the 1,000 squat and all that. How was she on with everything at home?
She's been amazing.
Mm-hmm.
She's been amazing. But she'll be the first one too to tell me like, hey, like, you know what I mean? Like, what's going on? What are you doing?
Yeah.
What? Because to her, it's not. She loves it because she knows that it's like ingrained into my system.
Mm-hmm.
But she doesn't love it to think it's cool. Like that's for like the fans. The fans think it's cool.
Yeah.
She's kind of more like, I understand what you're doing, but let me look you in the eye and ask you, what are you trying to do?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's a different conversation. And then I'll say, I better have a good reason to her on why some of these things are.
Mm-hmm.
And I explained the bodybuilding thing to people before, but those who haven't heard it is I'm trying to prove to people that you don't have to be the thoughts and perceptions that you have made up of yourself or that other people have made up for you. You don't have to be that way. You can be whatever way that you want to be. You can change. If you work on doing things differently today, you can make a change. We had a guy the other day wrote in and said he was on heroin for 10 years.
Yeah.
And he's gone on a keto diet and he's doing he's working out and he's been sober for 4 years or whatever. I mean, it was just,
Mm-hmm.
it was an unbelievable story, but you can start making some changes today that end up being huge later on. And if you look at like a picture of me from when I was 330 versus now, there's been some huge changes as a person. I'm a completely different person when it comes to where I was, 10 years ago, where I was 5 years ago. I continue to work on, and I feel like I'm getting better at every single thing that I do. And a lot of that is because of people like Andy and because of people like my parents who are still heavily involved in my life, and they're still, they're always in support of everything that's going on. But at the same time, they're level-headed enough to kind of say, "Oh, what is this all about?" And whatever this is of like social media fame or whatever, it does take a toll. There's a price to pay for everything. I tell people all the time, they think that Instagram is free, or they thought that their phone cost $1,000 or however much phones cost nowadays, but it doesn't cost $1,000. It costs a lot more than that. Try multiplying that by about 100, and that might be around the price that you pay every day when you're messing around on there too much, because that time could go into something much more effective. You're really going to look at your friend on Facebook that you really don't like that much and rip their life apart? I mean, that's fun. Yeah, I do it all the time. I used to do it all the time too. Take a screen capture of somebody, be like, "Look at this dick. This guy's such an ass," right? And then you laugh about it, or it could be a family member, right, that you're throwing under the bus. Look at these guys. What are they doing? Or it could just be something funny, but I don't feel like I got time for shit like that. I feel like I need to keep moving forward. That's what fulfills me the best. That's what makes me feel the best. And that's why I wake up every day like I'm launched out of a cannon. Anything else?
That's all I got, man.
Strength is never a weakness. Weakness is never a strength. See you guys later.